Meeting starts, and we will be live streaming, so a reminder to folks that we're not only on camera, but this will be saved for posterity. And I have no doubt but what all kinds of people in all kinds of situations will want to watch this. So just as if we were in public. And as a matter of fact, it is 5 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Standing Committee of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors, the Judiciary and Law Committee. I'm going to introduce the people who are present at the meeting at this time, and as people join us, if they do later, we'll try to get their names in as well. I'm going to introduce the folks in the order that I see them on my screen, so they won't be in any particular order other than that. Katie Shalley, the Clerk of Courts. I'm Supervisor Tripp, the Chair of the committee. Dave Bartlett, the Chair of the Dunn County Board. Bob Bauer, a Dunn County Supervisor. Marcy Rosas, the Medical Examiner. Andrea Nodolf, the District Attorney. Sarah Benedict, the Director of the Collaborative Justice. Kevin Bigg, County Sheriff. Mike Rogers, a Dunn County Supervisor. Carl Vandermeulen, who is just now joining us, a Dunn County Supervisor and member of the committee. Melissa Gilgenbach is with us by phone. Krista Vend, who is from IT and is here as tech support. Jeanne Stevenson, who has also joined us by phone. She is with child support. And Brenda La Forte also joined us by phone. She is the jail captain. First order of business is a call of the roll. We do have a quorum. Absent so far is Jim Zahns from the committee. Otherwise, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, so we do have a quorum. I'm speaking relatively softly. Can everybody hear me okay, or are we good that way? Good, thank you. Primarily, this is a meeting to get staff reports. We haven't met for a couple of months. We do have one new member and a little bit of change in the committee. So I thought it was important that we hear from our departments and divisions, especially in terms of the COVID-19 responses. So we're going to get right into the staff reports, and I'm going to take them in the order that they appeared in your packet. So Andrea Nodolf, if you don't mind leading off with the DA's report.
Sure. And welcome, Supervisor Bauer. It's nice to have you join Law and Judiciary. So just there's been some few changes. First is Marcy's Law. That was a constitutional amendment that was passed at the last election. That went into effect on April 13th. And so as a result of that, there's not a whole lot of changes, as I believe Dunn County has been sort of on the forefront of providing victim services. We've received a number of grants to provide enhanced victim services. And so a lot of the things we've already been doing, such as a person's in jail, we call the victim that morning and obtain their input. Now, though, there's just a little bit more. Victims now have standing in court to anytime their rights are implicated, they have a right sort of as a party to give a statement. And so that's a change that, you know, generally my office is, follows and is on the same in agreement with the victim, but frequently and more often than not, domestic abuse cases, there's a victim who may report a crime, but, doesn't want, wants to have contact with the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator, and my office doesn't want that contact. And so now the victim has the right to provide input at any proceeding in which their rights are impacted. And so it's just very important. There's my office needs to make sure we're on our A game every day and that we're documenting that we've given these victims their opportunity to provide their input. If the victim then has the right to speak like a party at any hearing. And so that'll be on the judges. Every now and then you get a very opinionated victim who feels strongly about certain things. And so my concerns are at times it could turn into a family law proceeding. And so, the judges we've already met, and I think that they're very experienced and will do a good job of balancing that. But, if for some reason a victim believes we're not following the law and we're not providing them with their rights, they can even file like a suit in the courts. And so it's just sort of added another thing that we have to do, and another thing that we need to make sure we're doing correctly. So bottom line, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on our office since we're doing a lot of things, but it's just changed some procedures, and we've already worked with law enforcement to update their forms to ensure that victims are right on scene when they're making contact with law enforcement, notified of their rights and what these expanded rights are. My office, as I said in my latest emails, is fully staffed, and so that's wonderful. We hired, in 2019 acquired 2 more state-funded prosecutor positions and filled one in November and one in December, and then we had a vacancy as well. So finally filled that last one, I believe in the end of April. Amber Hahn is her name. She used to be an assistant district attorney in St. Croix County, and then she was employed at the assistant attorney general with the AG's office. And so she has a lot of experience, so that's wonderful. She's just been able to jump right in, other than being a paperless office is a change, but that's been a seamless transition. And then Brad Erickson, who was a probation agent with the Department of Corrections for 20 plus years, as well as a court commissioner in Boyceville. He joined our office as a part-time victim witness assistant. So having a male in the office has been, a strength for victim witness to have, can build some different rapport with victims, just I think because of that gender position, as well as he's a great asset just for me as a prosecutor, given his experience with the Department of Corrections. So that's wonderful. Over the last couple of months, there hasn't been as many people in jail. And so it's sort of changed how we're doing business. But it's not that there's no crimes that are committed. It's just law enforcement isn't arresting them. They're sending up reports. And so it's just our office has been more diligent on making sure we're checking our email and making sure we're getting complaints done, even though if they're arrested, we have a timeline, like it has to be filed that day. So we've seemed to transition fine with the change in how work is coming to us. We've also, it's been a little bit slower. And so we have a number of projects that have sort of been deferred, such as, cleaning out our transitioning from paper to paperless. And also bringing a whole bunch of files to long-term storage. And so we've been able to do that and go through filing cabinets of old files. I found some from the 90s that have been sitting there. So been really able to catch up on that. We're only through 2014 in scanning. I still have 5 more years to do. So there's still quite a bit to do there. And we'll just keep pecking away at that. As far as my budget, as I said in my email, there was an employee who left our office who's receiving unemployment. That was not budgeted in, it was an unforeseen cost. And so I think right now the cost is $3,800, and there isn't that budget for that. Because we haven't had jury trials, our budget is looking okay for now, but I'm a little bit concerned that could negatively affect my budget moving forward, since that was an unforeseen cost. Let's see, our office supplies, we've already used 80%, essentially 84% of that cost. We're always over on that when we buy ink. It's just really expensive. And I think our only office supplies are $5,000 for the whole year. And we've already incurred $4,000 of that. But we have we don't have a very big budget. So usually it evens out, and we won't have the membership dues, the travel related programs, since there's really no training going on. Also, as far as budget, Richard Seahaver, that homicide case, he has pled guilty, not NGI, and so I didn't have to get a evaluator for him at this point. So we're set for sentencing in June. That was going to be a jury trial in July, so that would have cost quite a bit of money, and so that will be a savings for my budget. I still have the Gary Steyer homicide case pending. I'm anticipating I may have to have him evaluated by a doctor. There's certainly some mental health issues as well as autism, in my opinion, that's going on, and I need a doctor to evaluate that to see if he meets the standard for NGI. In the McCandless trial, the court ordered a evaluator, and I think it was around $14,000. So that can be very expensive on my budget, and we'll see how that plays out. As a side note, I had a meth sentencing hearing today, and the guy was a dealer, no question. He admitted he was a dealer, and I just found it very interesting, and I thought you might find it interesting that he had purchased $1,200 worth of methamphetamine, 84 grams, and so that amounts to about $14 a gram. And when I first started prosecuting meth cases about 10 years ago, it was about $150 a gram. So if individuals want to get meth, it is cheap and affordable for the general public. So I mean, that's why we're not seeing the shake and bake and manufacturing. It's just so available and so cheap for the general public. And then Barb Landy, our victim witness coordinator, she will be retiring in 2020. She hasn't given me a date yet, but I did nominate her to be the victim witness professional of the year, and she was awarded that. So that's really, I think, speaks a lot about the work that she's done for the county. She was nominated by me, and the judges wrote a letter, and the former Sheriff Dennis Smith and Eric Atkinson and Naomi Cummings from Bridge to Hope and her daughters wrote a letter, and everyone really pulled together, and I think it's a very deserving honor for her to receive that award. Any questions? Oh, sorry, Supervisor.
I have a question.
Try that again. Mike, go ahead.
The unemployment cost, that isn't a direct budget cost, is it?
It usually isn't in part of my budget costs. It just showed up on our, I think it was a cost to the county, and it showed up on my expenditures. And so I believe Sarah Stabenow has indicated we may need to do a budget adjustment for that, but there is a county portion that gets paid.
Does that come from the human services, from the admin budget, Andrea?
That I don't know. I know Heather and Sarah Stabenow were going to look into it, and then I just never heard anything because I was very surprised to see that in my budget.
Does it have anything to do with the COVID-19, or is it apart from that?
It's apart from that, but due to COVID-19, I believe she can continue to receive unemployment for up to 18 months.
That's right. That's extended. I was going to ask also about the negative numbers in holiday pay, vacation pay, sick leave. Same thing there. Is that related to COVID-19?
No, sir, I believe that's as a result of trying to budget ahead for Barb Landy's retirement.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions for Andrea? Any comments on her report? If not, thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Sarah Benedict, Collaborative Justice.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Got my headset on. Yep. Okay. I got some head nods. All right. Well, it's great to see everybody. It's been a while. Welcome to the new members. And it's always interesting just to see how through the elections that the committees change. I'd like to give an update on the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council and the various programs that we run. In the last couple of months, we've had some major shifts to our work. We've really deployed to that telework model. So really all of our staff are working from home. They're doing a lot of their work on the Zoom meetings like we're meeting today, also doing a lot of phone meetings. So really was important for IT to give us the support that they did. So I just want to say thanks to IT. We already had a lot of the equipment that we needed, but we needed that, that expertise in really setting it up and then allowing us to continue our operations from home. That's been both good and bad. It's been good that we have the flexibility to do that, but it's been harder for our team to work as a team. All of our programs are really interrelated as far as the staffing is involved, and us being remote, we miss that interaction that we have with each other. And it's just a little bit more challenging to connect with people or look on their schedule versus just kind of walking down the hall and asking a quick question. Our participants have been doing well overall. It is a challenging time for everyone, but a lot of the resources that are out there, supports have went to virtual. So for example, Arbor Place is providing their services through telehealth, which has really expanded the access that a lot of people didn't have access to the treatment, maybe because of transportation issues or they're remote. Now they're able to take part in some of those services. So there's definitely been some silver linings in all of this pandemic and the adjustments that we've made. Drug testing for all the programs been ongoing. So we have our vendor out in the community continuing to do that. That's been very important for that accountability piece with the treatment courts, the treatment opportunity program, and then our reentry program continues as well with that peer support. So while folks aren't able to go into the jail and provide one-on-one assistance, and a lot of the jail groups are taking a hiatus because of the social distancing, we're still able to give some peer support to the reentry participants as well. So, you know, staff is doing okay. They've really adjusted a lot. They're eager to get back to work, back to the workplace. So we're working on our reintegration plan, which will, you know, likely in steps, we'll be getting back to the office, but it'll be probably a while before we have face-to-face meetings with our participants. We're really waiting for the guidance on the county administration as far as how we're proceeding with that, those in-person meetings overall. As far as budget is concerned, budget is actually, there's less expenditures going on because we are not in the office. So there's, you know, less office supplies that are being consumed, less travel. The travel that we did have planned for later this year, we're not going to be moving forward with that. I'm really just trying to restrict travel, participate in virtual online training opportunities and other things. So we'll have some cost savings there through the rest of the year. I do want to let folks know that our family treatment court and our treatment court, those sessions are online and you certainly can participate. It is televised. So if you haven't witnessed or observed treatment court, we really encourage you to do so. The dynamics are much different, being that it's a Zoom meeting, but a lot of our participants, this technology just comes firsthand. So we're playing catch up with them as far as kind of navigating these tools. But overall, things are going well. We're eager to get back to work. We're eager to interact with people, but we just appreciate appreciate everybody's support, IT support, the jail support in allowing our staff to continue to do assessments and their business in the jail. And that's largely done over the phone right now. So that's going well. We're also interacting with the DA's office, still continuing those meetings as we would, just virtual meetings. So we're hanging in there, but looking forward to getting back in the office and back to business. But it's going to be different as we move forward, as we all know. That's it, unless there's questions.
Anybody have any questions for Sarah regarding collaborative justice? Boy, this meeting is going like a well-oiled machine until I realized I forgot to approve the minutes. So we're going to interrupt the staff reports and go back to item number 3 on the agenda. And I would ask for a motion from one of the members to approve the minutes of the February 17th meeting.
I move to approve them.
Mike Rogers moves. Bob Bauer seconds. Any questions or comments about the minutes from February 17th? Seeing none, don't forget to unmute. I'm going to ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you for your forbearance. I'm surprised that somebody didn't leap up and call my attention to that glaring mistake. We'll go back to staff reports. I think next up is Melissa Gilgenbach, 911 Emergency Management. Melissa, are you still with us?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I guess I'll go ahead first with the emergency management portion of my department. As most of you know, we're probably very busy with the COVID-19 situation that has a lot of our departments, working differently and working on different projects and things. We do a lot of conference calls, Zoom calls, things like this with the state public health. We have been doing a lot of work with the personal protection equipment for our first responders and law enforcement. The emergency management has been kind of the clearinghouse for that. We've now added the long-term care facilities and the nursing homes and things like that onto our list of people that we're helping source some of the PPE they need to keep their employees and businesses safe. It's very interesting, the process that we have to go through to receive some of the equipment from the national stockpile and different things like that. But it's definitely, we've worked out some kinks and it's going very well. We have surveys that we send out and then we distribute right from our office, and it's working well. I'm not sure how long that's going to continue. I think the national stockpile is getting down there on some of the different things that we have requested, but it is going well so far. Another project that we had been working on that I know this committee had actually heard a couple different presentations was the hazard mitigation project. And that is somewhat on hold right now due to some of the COVID activities. I know that we have one more meeting. It would be to look at the final presentation that Chris Strait was going to have for us. And I think he kind of wanted to do that back in March when all this happened, but it has been put on hold for now, just because everybody is so busy with COVID. And we hope to get that back on the radar here in the next couple months. So I did want to let you know that that is on hold. We're not going to miss out on any grant funding or anything like that, but we'll get back to that hopefully in a couple months. Other than that, just to follow up on what Sarah said about working from home, the emergency management office does consist of myself at 20% of my time, which the last 3 months have been way more than that, but 2 other part-time people, and they have been kind of, taking turns being in the office. And it is very, very hard when you have part-time people. And then, a pandemic like this that really requires a lot from your department. And then they're trying to work from home, and the coordination, it does make it a little bit more difficult, but we're trying to keep everybody safe. And, IT has been great helping us out, but that definitely does change the way we work out of an office, especially with, 3 part-time people that are working on this project. So other than that, things are going well. We're still trying to keep up on our day-to-day paperwork so that we have our plan of work on schedule for our grant process and things like that. Of course, the deadline is not until the end of September, but we want to stay at it because we understand this pandemic is for the long haul. It's not just going to be over in a month or two. And I'm sure they're not going to, change the requirements for our normal day-to-day work and grant process. So we're trying to stay up on that too. As far as the emergency management budget, I think we're okay for now. We have had some expenses due to COVID-19, so far minimal, and some of them we have been able to charge back other agencies for. Like dental offices needed some N95 masks. We were able to purchase them from UW Stout. So we sold them back to dental offices at cost. So things like that. So I don't think it's going to have a huge budget impact right now, but you never know, that may change depending on how long this, situation continues at this pace. That's about it for emergency management. I can move on to 911 unless someone has questions. Okay, 911, as the DA mentioned, our call volume is probably down right now just due to the safer at home order that was in effect. That did make an impact on, the number of calls we took daily. Less accidents, less drunk drivings. There was a lot of different calls that we noticed that the volume of those calls did go down. Even the number of EMS calls, people calling 911 for EMS situations. And I think that is due to people's uncertainty of wanting to go into the hospital. Possibly, that there may be germs or, that they may be infected if they went into the hospital, be exposed to other people. So that is something that we did notice, that our call volume was down during the safer at home. Now we've noticed a little bit of an uptick already just since last week when the state started to open up a little bit. Nothing outrageous, but we have noticed that the call volume has increased a little bit just in the last week. So other than that, staffing continues to be something that we work on. We do have 2 vacancies. We had not filled them just due to the nature of the safer at home and not wanting to bring people in to interview them, not wanting to bring people in to train them. When we train in the 911 center, we do sit within inches of each other. And we were trying to follow the, 6-foot social distancing rule. And so we have not hired. We're actually going to start working on that here in the next week or so, because we feel, we're probably in a little bit better situation and have some better testing than we did a couple months ago. So we're going to start working on hiring some of those 2 vacancies that we have now. Other than that, the 911 budget, I think, looks pretty good at this point, definitely because of the 2 vacancies that we do have, and we haven't filled those. We do have some funds right there. And other than that, we really don't have any COVID-19 expenses related to the 911 center. And that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Does anyone have questions for Melissa regarding either emergency management or 911? Generally, my questions tend to focus around budget, and I know that the state of Wisconsin is asking counties and departments to keep track of COVID-19 related expenses with the presumption that at some point there will be some money available from the state of Wisconsin to reimburse some of these expenses that are specifically related to fighting the pandemic. Does anybody, in general, that's what I know about it. Any of you so far have any comments regarding that? Otherwise, it's maybe a little early and I'm not at all sure that's going to be there.
I know that out of the emergency management office, we had talked to Paul and Keith, and we do have a form that we use through the emergency management office for documentation in hopes of reimbursement. And we've given that to the departments, and some of them are filling that out, you know, on a daily basis, activities that they have spent time on, funds that they have spent purchasing, you know, PPE or different things that they've had to purchase. And all of those forms will be coming into the 911 center, the emergency management office. And we will be coordinating that when we get the clarification as to actually what is going to be reimbursed. There's been some talk of salaried employees, basically their time would not be reimbursed because you're a salary employee and it's just your job. Elected officials is another thing that they wouldn't be reimbursing. You know, there's just talk. There's nothing firmed up as to what exactly is going to be able to be reimbursed, but we have been assigned someone from the state. I think she has 11 counties in our region. So we do have a really good connection to someone to help us through this when we get that far, once they do set out the requirements as to what they're going to be able to reimburse us on. So right now we're asking departments to document everything. And I believe that Keith did create a COVID-19 line item in everybody's budget, so it's a little bit easier to track actual tangible things. And so we've been compiling those in our office for a while now, and we encourage everybody to continue to do that. And when the time comes and we know what the requirements are, we'll be funneling that through our office.
Thank you, Melissa. I think my question was probably a little premature, but it's probably also one that's on a lot of people's minds in terms of budgets these days.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have questions or comments for Melissa? If not, we will move on then to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Bigg, would you like to take the stage?
Sure will. I don't know if you got my written report, kind of an update on COVID-19. I could probably share my screen, but just to cover some highlights with that and the steps we took, mainly through the jail to prevent any infection in that facility. Obviously, we're going to have a catastrophe on our hands if we get inmates and staff that are infected by COVID-19. So there aren't a lot of sheriffs standing around willing to take inmates off our hands that have potentially been infected. So we've been very cautious about who we're letting into the facility and things like that. We did furlough about 20 Huber inmates. Huber are work release inmates, for those that aren't familiar with that. My reasoning behind that was I didn't want to take the chance of them losing a job if they had a job, and then us not allowing them to leave the facility to go to work because of the fear of being infected. So we opted to furlough them. They're scheduled to return back to the jail now, June 1st. They all checked in. Every one of them checked in on April 15th like they were supposed to. So a few of them have returned to jail on new charges. The one thing that hasn't slowed down for us is the methamphetamines. Meth is running rampant. People don't care about stay-at-home orders when they have a meth addiction. So a lot of people that are ending up in jail right now are new meth charges. Well, otherwise, what we're doing is a lot of catch and release on the road. We call it. We'll request a bond from a judge over the phone, fill out a signature bond or a cash bond right on the road, and release them there. So personally, about 75 to 80% of my time in the last 2 months has been dealing with COVID-19 related stuff. Can I open? Why aren't I in essential business? Lining up PPE. and kind of relying on the chief deputy and my two captains to kind of let everything else run as normal and keep the rest of the office functioning. So I've kind of taken that on myself just because I've got the connections with the rest of the sheriffs, and sheriffs across the state have been fantastic about sharing resources with PPE and things like that, that we've been able to line up through resources. My costs right now out of my budget for PPE, I think are right around a little over $3,000. I didn't check today, but we're between $3,000 and $4,000 on unexpected costs with the personal protective equipment, and get it free where we can, but sometimes you got to pay for it. So other than that, I'm one secretary position vacant right now, which is a good time to be vacant because the lesser arrests that are happening right now, kind of overlooking some of the minor violations and letting people go with a break a little bit more, which is obviously going to have a budget impact, probably more so for Katie and our jail assessment revenue and things like that. But Katie's revenue is probably going to show a decrease because of the lack of tickets being written. One other thing I want to mention about budget impact is we found out after our budgets were submitted last year that they removed the insurance deductible line item from risk management budget, assuming then after we had submitted our budget that we were going to be responsible for $1,000 deductible on any claims. As that turned out, apparently we have a $5,000 deductible on some claims. Well, when you have a fleet of about 35 squads that are running 24/7, we usually hit a minimum of about 10 deer a year. That is not money that we budgeted for coming out of our vehicle maintenance line item. So I expect to blow that out of the water this year, but this wasn't anything that I was prepared to budget for, didn't know that I needed a budget for until budgets were submitted. But other than that, I won't take up any more time unless you have questions.
Anybody have any questions for the sheriff? We did get your written report, by the way, that summarized several of those points. I appreciate that. One of the questions that I had was, I know a few weeks ago in the paper, Eau Claire County had released furloughed, I imagine the same kind of process, a number of prisoners, and was wondering, but you've covered all that in your report. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Questions for the sheriff? Yeah, Dave?
With the less inmates, have you been able to reduce jail staff, or are those set that even with the reduced inmates, you have to keep the same amount of jail staff?
No, we're running with the same staff. The good part is our average daily population, and Brenda can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually right now is between 60 and 65 inmates. It still takes the same amount of staff to care for 60 to 65 inmates as it does 90 for the most part. We're really at minimum staffing in our jail facility already, so we weren't able to reduce any, but what we were able to do is probably avoid paying overtime when somebody had to be gone on a 14-day isolation due to a ill grandparent. So we were able to cover a lot of that without overtime. But no, we aren't able to reduce staff because we're pretty minimally staffed there now. We do have all of our state inmates yet, though, so we're still averaging over $20,000 a month income from state inmates, on top of the fact that now we're, I think, sitting on 7 that are supposed to be going to prison. and the sheriffs across the state, because the state prison system isn't taking inmates right now, they're paying us the same daily rate as they do for the 15 that we have contracted. So $51.45 a day for those 7 that we're sitting on. So we're actually making a pretty good revenue from sitting on technically 22 state inmates right now then.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question on the state inmates. So thank you for answering it for me.
Brenda, did you have a comment, or do you want to add anything to the sheriff's report?
Sure. Our count is running around 60 inmates right now. I am happy to report that no staff or inmates have any symptoms of the virus. We are fortunate compared to another jail that I spoke with today. Our new booking counter is completed and is working out very well, and the staff is very happy with it. Our jail inspection has been postponed due to this health crisis. It will be scheduled at a later date. And I guess the sheriff touched on the other points that I had. So unless someone has any questions.
Thank you, Brenda. Anybody questions for Brenda? Or anything left for the sheriff? If not, Marcy, why don't you take over and tell us what the medical examiner's office has been up to?
Good evening. So we are not fully staffed at this time. We still have a deputy opening in Dunn County that I'm not actively trying to fill at this time with COVID and everything else going on. So Lynn and I still continue to cover most of those hours in Dunn County. The other deputy who will cover some has been out on a medical for about 3 months. Our budget is sitting about where we would expect it to be at this time. For each county are not current. There's about $4,000 for Dunn County that still have not been, the invoices haven't come in yet at this time, and about $14,000 in Eau Claire County. That's always the line item that we watch closely. We've had, we're a little higher right now at this point on autopsies than we were at last year at this time, but of course, no control over that. As far as the COVID-19,
Oh, you must have gone under a bridge or something, because all of a sudden we lost your audio and you're frozen.
health.
Oh, you're coming back. There you go.
departments. Oh gosh, was I gone?
You were gone.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You're gone entirely now. While Marcy's gone, oh, she's back. You're muted though. I'm going to explain for the benefit of Supervisor Bauer that Marcy Rosas works for Dunn County as a medical examiner, and we contract with Eau Claire County, or her office does, to provide them with medical examiner services as well. Any work or expenses that are incurred in Eau Claire County, they are paid directly back. So we don't incur any expense for that. But Marcy does work in both counties. It's been a pretty successful arrangement, I think, so far. Marcy, you back? I can see you, but I can't hear you.
I am. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. I've had sketchy, been able to just kind of hear intermittently throughout the meeting. So this might be more frustrating for you guys, for me to try and give my report than anything. Are you able to hear me now?
It's interrupted, and if you've got, I would suggest this: if you've got something vital to tell us quickly. If there's nothing vital, we'll watch you as you go through jerky robotic-like motions and your voice comes through intermittently with echoing sounds. Otherwise, Marcy, I think we'll let you go.
We will skip.
Thanks for making the effort, Marcy. I appreciate it. I got an email from Marcy this afternoon. She's been out of town, couldn't get back in time, but has made a valiant effort to be with us and present her report. And we are grateful for that. Thanks, Marcy. Let's move along then. Clerk of Courts is next up. Katie, you want to take it?
Yes, thank you. Good evening to everyone. So far, the courts, we've been functioning. It's just been a different role than normal. All court hearings are being conducted by Zoom, and they're being live streamed to YouTube, or they're been conducted by phone. Our numbers are down as far as new case filings. We're still open to the public. If they have an appointment, we can't reject their filings, so we're taking them. Any restraining orders, new family filings, anything that they need assistance with, we're still helping them as they come in. Last week, the Supreme Court had a task force. They put together a decision that came out on Friday. So tomorrow, myself and the judges are going to meet to see what the next steps are going to be as far as integrating the public into the courtrooms when it's safe to do so. As of right now, we're not going to have any jury trials take place until the month of June. So we're going to be working on that tomorrow to see what the best approach is going forward. Staff are reporting in for work each day. It's a little bit slower, so we're doing a lot of projects, a lot of scanning and file destruction. As far as revenues, I am starting to see a decrease in revenues. It was about $100,000 less last month than what we've seen previously. A lot of that, though, I do believe is because we bumped all of our traffic court cases to the month of June. So nothing took place during the end of March and through the month of April. So I expect during June, when we close all of those cases out, we should start seeing some more of that revenue hit our line items. But I do expect there'll be a decrease. The Department of Revenue, they are not actively pursuing cases like they had in the past for outstanding debt. We're working with individuals that have been affected by COVID-19 as well. If they need an extension for a payment plan, we're more than happy to work with them. We don't want their license to be suspended or them to lose their job due to not being able to get to their employer. Otherwise, it's just been a different challenge, but things are really going, I think, as well as what they can be for the circumstances. Are there questions or concerns?
Anybody have anything for Katie or the Clerk of Courts? I see. Yeah, David.
I guess I hear from Mr. Miller about the budget every day. And so my concern, or I was just wondering, with the cases being down so much, have you been able to reduce staff at all and haven't had any savings in your department?
We have not. The county really hasn't taken the approach as far as laying staff off, and we do still have duties to be performed. So at this time, all staff are reporting in. There's obviously no overtime, and we normally try to flex schedules, but we have not reduced any staffing at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody else? Questions? One of my questions, and I don't know, and Andrea, I'll get to you in just a minute, and I don't know who can answer or how this is going to be answered, but the Federal Families First Act requires certain employers to provide certain leaves and benefits and things. And I just wonder where the funding for that ultimately is going to come from. Chairman Bartlett, I hear your concern, and I think everybody's got those same concerns, and I don't know if we have answers to that yet. Andrea, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate what Katie said, that, our traffic, we have only been doing a fraction, a couple of 4 or 5 cases where we usually have 20 or 30, and we have a lot scheduled in June. So I do think while it's slower now, we are going to see, some big months ahead of us. So I just wanted you to know that I agree with her, and there's hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel.
That's good to hear. Sheriff.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is, I just got notice of another grant opportunity. It looks like we're potentially eligible for $58,000. 16 municipalities between counties and cities across the state were like pre-approved for that grant. Marshall or chief deputy is going to start working on an application for that, but I don't know if that's just reimbursement. I'm guessing they're not going to just give us free money without some expenses to prove. But we are working on every grant that comes across an email. Either he or I check on that to see if we're eligible for it. So there is a possibility of seeing some money.
Is that COVID-19 related?
Yes. Okay. A lot of them that we're not eligible for is employee expenses, payroll, because my payroll really hasn't changed. I don't, other than the jail to maybe cover a couple shifts, my payroll really hasn't changed. So no increase in overtime because of it.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anybody else? Who am I hearing from?
Yeah, Bob Bauer, sorry.
Oh, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah. You said some of these counties are pre-approved. I mean, was there a criteria you had to meet to get that, or was that just something that they had set up ahead of time?
Yeah, and it was, there was 16, I think, across the state that were pre-approved. Eau Claire County, for example, was one of them that was pre-approved for some goofy number like $56,800. But I think it was related to previous grants that they had been approved for in the past, is how some of these jurisdictions kind of get pre-approved. But
thank you, Sheriff. Thanks, Bob, for your question. Anybody else? Anybody else? Then last but by no means least, Jeannie, do you want to tell us a little about child support and how things are going during the pandemic?
Sure. Well, the office is staffed by myself and 2 other employees on a daily basis. The remainder of the staff is working remote. We have not seen a slowdown, but the reason we've not seen a slowdown is because of the stimulus money that is treated the same way that federal tax money is treated in terms of child support. So if you owe child support arrears and you were certified for federal tax withholding of your refund, we will and have taken the stimulus money. It has obviously raised the ire of many individuals, and unfortunately enough, we were not talked to prior to that, and we were also given very little information from the federal government. So we've been fielding those questions in terms of the stimulus money and the treatment of that money from the onset of the stimulus approval. So with that, we've also been fielding many contacts from folks about the additional unemployment money that was approved for folks. We had hoped in the child support world that money, the extra $600 per week, would be added to the unemployment that is already being paid to folks, but it's not working like that. So if we've got you signed up for withholding of your from your unemployment benefits, the regular unemployment benefits, they're also taking that same amount from your $600 payment. So we've had an increase in the money obviously coming in, but with that we've also seen an increase in the number of disgruntled individuals and an increase in the number of refunds that we've had to coordinate. I just got information from the state today on how they want us to handle that. Up till now, the counties have been told to use their discretion and do whatever we deem to be appropriate. So those 2 things have been keeping us well busy. We are still filing legal actions against folks. We are conducting our court hearings by telephone, which is an interesting process, particularly in family law cases, because there's so many emotions by all of the parties involved in those cases. And so we have continued to have both family court hearings and circuit court hearings during this time. My budget looks good at this point. I don't have any real concerns about it. I am working on the 2021 budget as it is due at the end of the month. I'm also working on the bounce back plan, trying to figure out how to bring my folks back into the office. With that being said, we also have a long list of folks that want genetic testing done. We are a self-collecting county. We have been doing self-collection of genetic test samples for quite some time in paternity cases. And I just last week received the protocol from our testing facility on how to do that on a local basis. So I'm trying to coordinate that with KT over in public health as well, in terms of plexiglass or PPE or whatever it is that we need as we try to move forward with that. There is quite a list of folks that need that done when we do open back up. And then the last thing is that I'm working on my triennial program review. I hope to get that together next week. Obviously, the meeting with the reviewer has been postponed to a future date, but all of the materials that I need to get together are due to the reviewer in very short order. So that's about all I have, unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, Jeannie. Any questions regarding child support? Seeing none, I want to thank all of you for not only for the reports, but for the efforts in this really unusual time. It has, if nothing else, taken some initiative and some thinking outside the box, which is a real popular phrase, but we're not often required to do it like we are now. So appreciate all of your efforts in that regard. Thank you. Moving on through the agenda. We don't have any actions to be taken by the committee. We don't have any reports or resolutions for the county board. Are there any announcements other than what is contained in your reports? Seeing none, brings us to item number 9. I thought this would be a good time to talk a little bit about meeting times and dates. We have traditionally met on the fourth Monday at 5 o'clock. We can continue that. There's no problem there. But because we've got slightly changed membership on the committee, this would be a good opportunity to talk about different meeting time or date. Let me just say this about the date. The fourth Monday works well because it's almost always about a week and a half prior to the executive committee meeting. So if the Judiciary and Law Committee takes action that has to be funneled through executive, there's plenty of time to get that into exec and then into the county board meeting. So the timing during the month works pretty well. Jim Zons, who is not here, has a meeting on another Monday, I think the first Monday of the month at about the same time. But that doesn't mean we're locked into this. It just means it's convenient in most regards. The other thing is we have traditionally met, at least since I've been on the committee, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I have, that means that I miss the Final Jeopardy on meeting days, and that's been somewhat of a hardship for me, but I guess I'm willing to put up with that. I'm just wondering about staff, though. Would it be a more reasonable thing to ask to meet earlier or later in the day, or what are your feelings? Well, how would people feel about a 4 o'clock start for the meeting? That gets us home a little bit more in line for supper.
Fine with me.
I see a couple of thumbs up. Is there anybody that really has a conflict with that? Because one of the things, you know, everybody has lives. Well, all of you have lives outside the county. And staff has other obligations that they have to pay some attention to. But if we were to move the meeting to 4 o'clock, it would make me happier. And I saw a couple of other thumbs up. Anybody that really can't do that doesn't work for. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, where am I at here?
You're on.
It's a little tough for me at 4 o'clock. I'm still at the office and I can't get out of there at that time. I'm probably leaving about that time, so.
Okay, well, that answers that question. 4:30, how about that?
Yeah, I'd be pushing it close, but yeah, we could try it once and see what happens.
Not that that makes a whole lot of difference. Is that, anybody have reactions to that? Our next meeting has already been scheduled for, well, the 4th Monday in June. I forget what day it is. It's on the calendar already. And if it's all right, I would change that meeting time to 4:30. It gets us, then I miss Jeopardy entirely, and then I can tape it and go home and watch it afterwards. You know, there's certain priorities that a guy has to have here. But 4:30, I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that might be a little better for staff. Is that right or not? And if so, then I think it's worth doing. And it still gets us out in time for supper. So with your permission, seeing no objections, I'm going to set the next meeting. It's already on the county calendar. We'll just change the time to 4:30 in the afternoon. If that works out, we'll continue that way. If not, we can always change. Occasionally we have to change meeting days anyway. All right. Last chance to comment. Jeannie?
It works for me, and that would be June 22nd.
June 22nd.
Yeah, June 22nd.
Okay, whatever that 4th Monday is. Thank you.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other business? Anything for the good of the order? No announcements? All right. Then with great appreciation, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening. Stay safe. Stay healthy. See you on June 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.